You have heard this story before. A boy born with nothing, no inheritance, no connections, no safety net. Just two hands, a strong back, and an unbreakable will. He works harder than everyone around him. He saves every penny. He takes every opportunity. And one day, he makes it. That story has a name, the self-made man. And for nearly 200 years, it has been the beating heart of the American identity. But here's the thing. That story is not history. It is mythology. And the people who built it knew exactly what they were doing. But if the self-made man is a myth, who invented it and why? Think of mythology the way you think of a company logo. A logo does not describe what a company actually does. It describes how the company wants you to feel about it. The American mythology of the self-made man works the same way. It does not describe how success actually happens in America. It describes how Americans have been told to feel about success and about failure. So who first used the phrase, and what was he actually arguing for when he said it? The term self-made man entered the English language on February 2nd, 1832. That is not a guess. That is a date you can verify. On that day, Henry Clay, a senator from the state of Kentucky, one of the most powerful political figures of his era, a lawyer who had served in Congress and run for the presidency 3 times, delivered a speech to the United States Senate defending what he called the American system, a program of protective tariffs and federal investment in roads and infrastructure. Clay needed to explain why ordinary American workers deserved economic protection from cheaper foreign goods, and so he invented a phrase. He said in that Senate chamber, "In Kentucky, almost every manufactory known to me is in the hands of enterprising, self-made men."
But if Clay invented the phrase to defend government investment, how did it become the opposite, a story about men who needed no help at all? Within 30 years, the phrase had been stripped of its political context and turned into a moral claim. If you succeed, it is because you are virtuous. If you fail, it is because you are not. The man most responsible for this transformation was not an American politician. He was a Scottish writer named Samuel Smiles. Born in Haddington, Scotland in 1812, trained as a physician, and eventually devoted entirely to writing about the improvement of individual character. In 1859, Smiles published a book called Self-Help. It became one of the best-selling books of the 19th century, translated into dozens of languages and read across the industrializing world. Smiles argued in plain and direct language that the difference between success and failure was entirely a matter of personal character, thrift, perseverance, industry. And what happened when you looked closely at the real stories behind the great men Smiles used as proof? Among his examples was James Watt, the Scottish engineer who in the 1760s and 1770s developed fundamental improvements to the steam engine that helped power the Industrial Revolution. Smiles presented Watt as a solitary genius who succeeded through personal determination alone. What he did not mention was that Watt worked within the University of Glasgow, was funded for years by Matthew Boulton, a wealthy English manufacturer and industrialist, and operated within a dense network of scientific societies, institutional workshops, and commercial partnerships. Watt's achievement was real. Smiles' framing of it was a carefully constructed illusion. It is like telling the story of a winning Formula One driver by talking only about his reflexes and never mentioning the car, the pit crew, the engineers, or the hundreds of millions of dollars of institutional support behind every lap he drives. But was Smiles an exception, or was the pattern of invented biography the rule across the entire history of the American self-made man? The academic historian Irvin G. Wyllie, in his 1954 study, The Self-Made Man in America, The Myth of Rags to Riches, published by Rutgers University Press, examined the biographies of hundreds of successful American businessmen from the 19th century. His conclusion was precise. The vast majority of wealthy American industrialists did not come from poverty. They came from middle-class or upper-class families. They had education. They had access to capital. They had connections. Wyllie's research showed that the myth of the self-made man was not a description of how the American economy actually worked. It was a description of how Americans preferred to imagine it worked. And what about Horatio Alger, the writer whose name became synonymous with the rags to riches dream? Did his novels actually tell the story everyone thinks they did? Horatio Alger was a 19th century American author who published more than 100 novels between 1867 and his death in 1899. Alger was a Harvard-educated writer born in Chelsea, Massachusetts in 1832, who had briefly served as a Unitarian minister before devoting himself entirely to fiction. His novels, with titles like Ragged Dick, published in 1868, and Luck and Pluck, published in 1869, told the stories of poor boys in American cities who rose to respectability. But here is what almost nobody remembers. His heroes never became wealthy through hard work alone. In every single Alger story, the structural turning point is identical. The poor boy performs some act of public virtue. He saves a drowning child. He returns a lost wallet. And a wealthy and well-connected patron witnesses it and decides to help. The patron gives him a job, a letter of introduction, and an entry into a world the boy could never have reached on his own. The boy's rise is not the product of isolated individual effort. It is the product of chance, visibility, and the generosity of someone who already had power. It is not a story about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. It is a story about being in the right place at the right time, being noticed by the right person, and having the social skills to make a good enough impression that a powerful stranger decides to invest in your future. So if even the novels got it wrong, what happened when real industrialists told their own story? Men like Andrew Carnegie, who built one of the greatest fortunes in American history. The myth hardened into ideology during the Gilded Age, a period in American history running roughly from the 1870s to the early 1900s, when industrialists like Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, and J.P. Morgan accumulated fortunes on a scale that had no historical precedent in the United States. Carnegie, born in Dunfermline, Scotland in 1835, the son of a hand-loom weaver, arrived in America with his family at age 12. He found his first significant opportunity as a telegraph messenger boy in Pittsburgh and rose rapidly through the Pennsylvania Railroad under the direct mentorship of Thomas Scott, one of the most powerful railroad executives in the country, who recognized Carnegie's abilities and gave him early access to investment opportunities unavailable to ordinary workers. In 1889, Carnegie published an essay called The Gospel of Wealth in the North American Review, one of the leading American intellectual journals of the era, arguing that great wealth was the natural reward of superior ability and personal effort. What the essay did not discuss, the mentorship, the privileged access to capital, the insider position within one of the most powerful industrial networks of the century. Carnegie's success was real. His narrative of isolated self-creation was a careful construction.
And what was the real cost of that constructed narrative? Not for Carnegie, but for the country that believed it. Because of this ideology, the belief that success is purely the product of individual virtue and failure is purely personal weakness, the United States built a political culture that was structurally resistant to the social support systems expanding in other industrializing nations at the same time. Because if success is entirely personal, then poverty is entirely personal too. And you do not build public institutions to help people who have simply failed to be virtuous enough. Imagine a race where some runners start at the finish line, some start in the middle, and some start miles behind. But the official rules insist that everyone began at exactly the same place. The runners who win will naturally believe they won because they were faster. The runners who fall behind will be told year after year that they simply did not try hard enough. And the starting positions are never put on the map. But is this just a historical observation, or does the data from today confirm that the starting positions were never equal and are becoming less equal over time? This is not a political opinion. It is the finding of one of the most rigorous economic analyses of social mobility ever conducted. In 2017, the economist Raj Chetty, a professor at Harvard University and one of the world's leading researchers on economic inequality, and his co-authors published a study in the peer-reviewed journal Science titled The Fading American Dream: Trends in Absolute Income Mobility Since 1940. The study analyzed the income records of tens of millions of Americans across multiple generations. Its central finding was this: among Americans born in 1940, approximately 90% went on to earn more than their parents had earned. Among Americans born in 1980, that number had fallen to approximately 50%. The probability of the classic American story, earning more than your parents, rising above your starting point, had been cut nearly in half in the span of 2 generations. The self-made man is not impossible, but he has always been rare, and he is becoming rarer. So why does a myth that the data contradicts so completely continue to survive? And who does it actually serve? The myth survives because it serves a purpose. It tells the successful that they deserve everything they have acquired. It tells the struggling that their circumstances are their own fault. It converts a structural question: why do some people begin life with vastly more access to resources, education, capital, and connection than others, into a moral question about individual character? It is a story that protects the powerful and burdens the powerless, and it does so with the language of inspiration. Henry Clay coined the phrase in 1832 to argue for government investment in ordinary workers. He used it to defend collective economic policy. 200 years later, the phrase has been turned into its opposite, into an argument against exactly the kind of structural support Clay was defending. The boy in the story was never entirely alone. He never was. The question worth asking is not whether he worked hard. The question is who built the road he walked on to get there.